makes your noose like an old man. He's got you thinking about your death and you are frightened.
Hi to everyone, I'm Ada from Poison Rock, and today we have really the honor to have with us one of the founder and the bass player of Megadeth, David Ellefson. Hi David, how are you?
There.
First of all,
hi there, Ada. How are you? How you doing?
I'm fine. A little bit nervous, but I'm fine.
That's okay. We'll calm your nerves down. It's okay.
Okay, so go straight to the first questions, of course. How does it feel to be one of the biggest bass player in the thrash metal scene, especially of the famous Bay Area?
Well, we all start at the same place, at the bottom, right? We start here,
Yes.
And then we try to build up, and I'm of the belief that if you don't quit, you have a chance at ending up at the top or somewhere near the top, and I think that's probably my story is just perseverance, through a lot of challenges. Everybody knows music is not an easy way to make a living. The music business, musicians can be troublesome.
Yeah, but you made it. You made it.
So I think probably, honestly, the playing the bass, that's the easy part. The rest of it is probably the most challenging,
So you and Dave, like I was saying before, you are the founder of Megadeth. Could you shortly tell us what is changed from that earlier times till today?
Well, I think when we started, the fact that, when I met Dave, he was, fresh out of Metallica about 6 weeks. And he was he had an idea for a band called Fallen Angel. And he was working with a couple of guys. Yeah, trying to get a couple guys. And it wasn't really clicking. So when me and my friends from Minnesota landed in Los Angeles in the same apartment building where Dave was living, when we met Dave, that's when it turned a corner, and Dave had a couple songs, Set the World Afire, which was called Megadeth.
Set the World Afire, yeah.
Looking Down the Cross, which was tentatively titled Hear No Evil, See No Evil, Speak No Evil, or maybe it was just called Speak No Evil, I think is what the tentative title was. And a handful of just beginnings of stuff, and it was really good. I mean, his stuff he was writing was exceptionally good. In fact, I still say the Set the World Afire lyric is still one of my favorite lyrics Dave's ever written. It's just it's great. So my friend Greg is the one who said, I remember after we came back downstairs to our apartment after hanging out with Dave for the night after we first met him, and he goes, "Dude, we got to go play with that guy." and I said, I know. I said he's the real deal, and that's really what turned the corner. Greg at first played was Dave, and then he said to Dave, he goes, "Listen, you got to get Ellefson in here, this your friend Matt, he's fine, but basically Dave was kind of teaching this kid Matt how to play bass, and I like Matt. He was a nice guy from Beverly Hills, but." I showed up ready to hit the ground and do it, So Greg actually got me playing with Dave, and then we started to rehearse. We went to a couple rehearsals, and I was the only guy that had any transportation. I had a van, that I drove out to Los Angeles, and so that's when we put all the equipment in, and we went, and after we rehearsed a few days, that's when we came back to the apartment and we said, man, we got to talk about a name. And that's when Greg said, he goes, why don't we just call the band Megadeth? Because that was that first song.
Just came out like that.
Well,
the first song.
It was, Dave had this, Set the World Afire was called Megadeth, and it was the first song Dave wrote after he, on the bus ride when he was coming home from Metallica. So it was the first song he wrote. The name was obviously very ominous. Probably the only thing even close to as just metal as that was like Black Sabbath. Like some names that scare you. Names that make you go, whoa, that's freaking dark, man. And so and that's what we settled on. And so from that day, that was the day we became Megadeth, and that was probably late June. And our drummer Dijon Carruthers was there, and and that's what started it. And of course, that lineup would change. Me and Dave would be the last one standing out of that. But that, so to be there when that started, I think, when Dave and I come together, even now in 2020, we were just together working on the album recently. There's a connection between me and Dave that we can always sort of go back to. Hey, remember when we started this? We talked about this and this and this.
They're from the beginning. Yes,
exactly.
So connection.
So that is the core, the basis, and the real seed of what Megadeth is. And so for us to be there to plant that seed, germinate it, and let it really tend to it.
Let it grow. Yeah.
We've gone through a lot of changes, managers, record companies, the world has changed. We've seen Nirvana. We've seen Seattle come and go. We've seen new metal come. We've seen a lot.
All music, all the genre of music.
All these genres, So anyway, I think the fact that we're still here is because of that moment of back in June of 1983. That's why we're here. That was
amazing.
The day it was born. Yeah,
that's amazing. And there is some particular memories that you love of the first 5 albums.
First 5 albums, okay. So that would be what, through Countdown to Extinction? My math is correct. Is that right? Right. Killing Peace. So far, Rust, Count. Okay, good. My math is still in shape.
Some memories that you have in particular of the period.
Well, they all have a really special place because, you go back. Think of it like taking a family vacation, right? You go, right? It's like you think about like I think about family vacations. Oh, I remember when we went to the lake in Minnesota, or then we took a trip to Florida, and then one year we took a trip to Seattle. So that's kind of what these albums are like. They're these sort of family photo collections.
I was thinking the same.
Right? Of who like you were.
Frame, like each album is a frame.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Those songs that are there are sort of the thought life and the life experience that you had up to that point.
Yeah.
So obviously, Countdown to Extinction is going to be quite different from Killing in the sense that we play better, we write better, we're more connected as a group. Of course, in our case, there were different members in the group, so we'd gone through some, 3 lineup changes by that point. So naturally, the sound is going to evolve and develop.
So we, of course, gone up.
And as things went along, every album we had a little bit more money from the record label to hire different producers, work in better studios, and and our fan base was growing, and there's all those things that are. I mean, every one of those records are absolute favorites of mine for their own reason. Yeah.
And after the 90s era with Manzine Friedman, up until A World That Needs a Hero, you have been in the band. What could you tell about that period?
The period I was in the band, or the period that I wasn't? Yeah.
The period that was, and then when you come back.
Well, so again, from the beginning through 2002, when Dave, quit Megadeth. He called us up and he said, "Look, I'm quitting Megadeth," and it was shocking. There was a lot of stuff going on around it that it I guess in some ways maybe wasn't surprising, but it was certainly shocking because it changes your whole life, obviously, you know.
Yeah.
You know, this is an unusual line of work, especially as the musician, as the artist, as the band member.
Yeah.
If you're a guitar technician or a lighting technician, you can go from one band right to another, to another, to another. You know, your
Yes.
employment carries on. But when you're a musician in the band, very different scenario, especially when you're, you know, a creator of something like we started with Megadeth, and you're known as that. I found, quite honestly, the next several years after that, when I was out doing some things, you know, just experimenting. I had a little band called F5. I played with Max Cavalera from Soulfly. I recorded, toured with him. You know, so, but the thing was, is people are always like, "Oh man, David Ellefson from Megadeth." So I was always the guy from Megadeth, you know, because I had made so many records. Yeah, I mean, for 20 years I'd been in this group, you know, and from the beginning, and so, you know, you're always. I mean, I think about like my friend KK Downing. He's KK from Judas Priest, you know, and always will be. You know what I mean? As much as I know him as his own guy, as he's, you know, now becoming an artist, doing some things on his own, which I'm excited about because I know there's more gas in the tank for him. You know, he's got more creativity. But I guess in my mind, I'm always kind of like, you know, references as he's, you know, KK from Judas Priest. So, that can be a blessing and a curse because as much as you may want to try to do some other things, to a large degree, our fans, our public, they know us. There's an identity. You see it with actors. You know, an actor is well known for James Bond or a series, something on Netflix maybe.
And always remember for that. Yes.
As fans, we remember him as that. So when they do a different role, like, you know, Will Ferrell or somebody, or, you know, Jim Carrey, they do like, it's weird to see Jim Carrey in a serious role because he's always the funny, goofy guy, you know.
Comedian, so he's also a comedian.
Musicians are very much the same way because we're known as artists and we create things, and when we have success with them, people identify and remember us as that moment, as that character.
Yes. Yeah. And what does the huge and legendary Big Four means to you? There is a memory from the Big Four that you remember most?
You know, I have the plaques back on the wall right here, and
I was watching before.
It's funny to see. It's funny to see the photo of that moment. You know, when we were in Sofia. You know what I remember from Sofia is, of course, the jam when we were playing Am I Evil. But what I remember is there was this thunderstorm. In fact, you see it on the DVD, right? For the Big Four DVD, there's this big looming thunderstorm overhead, and we were kind of I was kind of wondering when it was going to hit. And I thought it was going to hit when Slayer, you know, opens with like, you know, Rain and Blood, then the freaking rain. Yeah. But the truth of it is, it could happen during Megadeth show. Right as soon as we started, we opened with Holy Wars. Yeah. The freaking rains came down, and they gave away, they gave away these rain coats with like hoods on them, right? And they were like red, yellow, and blue. So it was like the most colorful rainbow colors of heavy metal fans. Yeah. Instead of everybody wearing black, they had these raincoats with the ponchos on. So it was beautiful.
A colorful band. A colorful Megadeth.
So that's one memory I have. And I think also just the camaraderie, you know, that we had. You know, you could see how different the four bands were. I mean, especially all these years later, as much as we may have been kind of lumped in as similarities of Big Four thrash in the beginning, the truth of it is you could really see our uniqueness and our differences. And I think that's what made the event even cooler, is that as much success as we all four have had, we all very much were a pillar in the four corners of that franchise, if you will.
Yes, and as a bass player, how much the sound of Megadeth impacted in your composing?
Well, I think a lot. I mean, look, you can hear. I mean, look, with Megadeth, obviously there were some three records I did not perform on, and look, they sound like Megadeth because, of course, it's Dave, it's him writing, it's him singing, his guitar style is very defined. there's definitely a chemistry that happens when Dave and I play together. And I think one that is identifiable to the point that is what the fans want. That's why they want that. And that's why it made sense, obviously, at a certain point for Dave and I to connect back together. And it was a wonderful moment. You know, Dave and I got to each go our separate ways, do some, you know, he got to have Megadeth on his own. I went off. I was doing some other things. I was going to college. I was doing some other business things, doing some other musical things. And it was really a great moment to come back together. And that was 10 years ago for the 20th anniversary of Rust in Peace tour that we did. And especially over that album, you know, that album is one of these records, you know, for me and Dave.
People never forget.
Well, look, for us, you know, look, we were, you know, we became junkies. I mean, we were strung out. There was a very dark period of a lot of drug heavy stuff, you know, and we went through it. We wrote this album. It took like a year and a half to write it, but then we got clean and we were sober when we recorded it. So it's got all the clarity that it needed to have the recording.
But it's very deep.
Yeah. So there's a lot of. There's a lot of depth to it, and I guess that's what resonates with the fans. And I think it came. 1990 was a very pivotal time in, you know, thrash. You know, Metallica, of course, was quite a ways up ahead, and they were already doing very well. But for Anthrax, Slayer, Megadeth, it was our moment to come up, and we came up together. You know, is kind of through the three of us together. We combined forces a lot with Clash of the Titans and things like that. You know, Anthrax.
Clash of the Titans. And there is some moment about Clash of Titans that you remember, that some funny moment, something that particularly happened in that period, etc.
Yeah, there's a lot. One that's funny, I think, is that I remember in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, we played at the Five Seasons Center. It's an arena there, and two headbangers got married right before we went on stage, right? Because in between, I guess, Anthrax and Megadeth, they got married out in the front of house. You know, will you marry me? Yes, I do. Kiss the bride, and then the lights went down, and then Megadeth played. So I always joke that was our first wedding gig. You know, that was our first wedding concert.
There was a lot of wedding gigs during your
That was the only one. That's the only one we've done.
That's amazing. And I mean, also always as a bass player, there are some songs that you like and enjoy most of playing bass with Megadeth. That maybe I don't know, there is particular role of the bass.
You know, I'm very blessed in Megadeth because as a composer, Dave has always brought me and the bass forward. And in particular with me, you know, the records that I played on, you know, he's always really brought the bass forward as a feature instrument.
Of course. It's like, you know, it's really important.
It is, and of course there's fantastic guitar moments, there's vocal moments, there's drum moments, and that's part of back in 1983. We decided every person in the band was going to be lead singer, lead guitar, lead bass, lead drums, right? Like everyone was going to have a lead role, right?
And this is why you became one of the lead band in the world.
So there's, there's moments like, I mean, more recently from Dystopia, probably Fatal Illusion. You know, there's this nice bass break in there, you know. There's, of course, I think some of the highlights happened toward the end of the set with, of course, the P-Cells intro. As soon as I play it, everybody erupts. And for me, it's not so much about the self-gratification of me playing the part. It's that when we play them, the audience erupts with joy. You know, they're happy and it feels powerful, and they, you know, it's like this conquering victory that we have together. And I think to me, that's what I like about the Megadeth songs. And when we play them, I feel connected as a band to our audience. We're all in it together, and nothing can come in, nothing can stop that, you know, and that's just a cool feeling on stage. Yeah.
That's amazing. And you were speaking about Dystopia. Dystopia has been declared like one of the best Megadeth album. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I I agree. It's having made these records, of course, over the years. I thought the Endgame record was really good. I did not play on it, but there's a lot of riffs on it that I'm familiar with because there's some stuff that was left over from previous years. In fact, when I came back to Megadeth, we did the Rest in Peace tour for a month in America. And then we needed to shoot a video for the song "The Right to Go Insane," and I remember that because we wrote that for the Cryptic Writings album, and it didn't go on the album, and that's how old that song was. And so I remember right away. I was like, "Wait a minute, I know this part," and so the song came right back to me. And so it's interesting. Like I thought the 13 record had some really strong material on it. The Super Collider album had some songs that were kind of light, but then it had a whole other batch of songs that were pretty heavy, So that album's kind of divided down the middle, like side A, side B, if you will, right? Dystopia, I think we hit just the perfect bullseye with it of the right tempo, the right intensity. It's a thick sounding album, the production of it is really
like a formula.
Yeah, it's a very powerful record. And it just was it's just a moment where it all just clicked, and I think there was a feeling inside putting the band back together. It's funny, Dave and I were on the phone literally right here where I'm sitting. And I remember the conversation we were just talking about. We tried to do, a manager had brought to us the idea of doing the Rest in Peace thing. And me and Dave were like, look, we've tried that and it's probably not going to happen. And we tried, we put forth our best efforts. And of course, the new Rest in Peace book that's out tells the story of that and how we were just in different places in our lives. And, so one more time, it's back to just me and Dave. We were firing a manager, getting a new manager in who was our current manager. A week or so later, Dave calls me and says, "Hey, I think I found the guy to be our guitar player," and it was Kiko, and I knew Kiko, so I called him. I texted him, I think. I texted him, and he just got home from tour, and so got him down to Nashville to meet with Dave. And the truth of it is, Dave already made his mind up. Kiko was in the band. I mean, he knew he could play, So, and Chris Adler said, "Hey, I'm here for you guys to play drums on the record. If you need a drummer, I'm here. I'll do it." And so, it was just a moment where we kind of had to get the past, the whole Rest in Peace reunion. We had to get that out of the way. You know what I mean? Because it just wasn't going to happen. And once that, sometimes when you can kind of let go of your past, you've carved a nice channel to move forward, and that is really what Dystopia was. We were just able to straight ahead.
Go straight to the point. And since you are like one of the biggest, personal in thrash metal scene, what do you think about the contemporary thrash metal scene? Since we are having like a huge return of thrash metal in the metal scenario, although of this new thrash metal, but what do you think about that?
Oh, look, I think it's great that the tradition carries on. There is something about the traditional sound of thrash that people like. They just want to hear it, And every once in a while, there will be a new band that comes along that does something new and groundbreaking. And
that's right, yeah.
That's often met with celebration. It's also met with resistance from the old school, because the old school are like, it's not what I grew up with, so I don't like it. But it has to develop and evolve. And new music is always driven by young people. It just is. And that's why, look, Megadeth at one point, we were the young kids, busting through the walls and coming through, and guys like Alice Cooper and Ronnie James Dio and Iron Maiden, they took a chance on taking us out.
The legend.
We were the new guys playing with our heroes, and our heroes took a chance on us, because our heroes knew that.
If I ask you, who are your heroes?
Well, look, there's a couple of them: Iron Maiden, Judas Priest.
I remember.
Ronnie Dio, and certainly Alice. I was just a kid when Alice Cooper was at one of his earliest peaks, and Yeah, and then then to know him and tour with him, and now of course we're neighbors in Phoenix here in town, and he's just a wonderful guy. He's been such a great ambassador for Megadeth on a lot of levels. He was when we got signed to Capitol Records on the Peace Sells tour. We needed a big tour. We needed a big arena tour. Metallica had been out with Ozzy, Anthrax had been out with Iron Maiden. And we needed a big look, and Alice was that guy that took a chance on us and put us out in front of a lot of people.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So right now we are just like at the ending. Just if you want to leave a message to your worldwide fans, I have to say, and our follower of Poison Rock, it would be a pleasure.
Sure. All right. Well, I'm David Ellefson, and thank you everybody for all the years of support. 30 years of Rust in Peace this year. Megadeth 37 years now, and still moving forward. New album coming. So
and
what
about the new album? There is some tips that you can tell us before closing?
No, I can't.
It will be a surprise.
We're working on it now. Again, we've been writing it for the last couple years, but we're recording it. But that's about all I can tell you. And of course, with the state of the pandemic and touring being somewhat hanging in the balance, there's nothing more really I can report on it, because once all that kind of opens up, then we'll know more about the release date and everything else.
Okay, so thank you so much, David, for being with us, and it's really an honor for personally for me met you.
Not for the money, not for the fame, not for the power, just no more games. But now I'm safe in the eye of a tornado. I can't replace the lies from as days go. No, I'm never trapped inside. When I way I surely die in the eye of the tornado. Blow me away. You grow to love my name.
You can't refuse what the old man whispered to the preacher during the sermon. He's a saint to the fools of the old land, but we can see straight through the tricks that he is turning. He'll speak, but you gotta